points at the top of the table after wins over Aberdeen and Motherwell, respectively. That's the latest. I'm Anna Russell.
Love Sport Radio. On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is the Wimbledon Fans Show.
Underground, overground, wumbling free. The wumbles of Wimbledon, common are we. Making good use of the things that we find. Things that the everyday folks leave behind. Uncle Bulgaria, we can remember the days when he wasn't behind the time.
Good evening. You are listening to Love Sport Radio and me, Matt Beadle, here because it's time for the AFC Wimbledon Fan Show, and I'm joined by, let me tell you, a dish of a man, and his name is George Jones. How are you, George?
I'm good, yourself?
Yes, very well, thank you, mate. All the better for sitting opposite you right now. Now, normally we come here and we reflect on the game that's just happened, but there was no game this weekend.
No, there was no game yesterday for obviously the sad reasons around Bury and the fact that they've been expelled from the Football League. And I have to admit, as someone who goes to every game, it was a very, very strange feeling.
What on earth did you do yesterday, mate?
I don't know, because I was intending to go to the academy game, but they were playing a team who I don't enjoy us playing against very much, so I didn't go to that. Great result for them, by the way. We'll move on to that later. But it was something that, again, this weekend was very weird for Wimbledon fans, because especially when you remember the circumstances, because the Bury situation was all towards the end of August, early September, when you know the decision was made. So we're a month and a bit on from that. And it sort of slipped from everyone's mind slightly.
I remember us talking about it on the show, didn't we?
And then all of a sudden, we just don't have a game on a Saturday.
Because that was it. Because we discussed on the show that maybe you'd all club together and do something on that Saturday or something. Were there any discussions with Bury fans about getting together? I
think the problem is at Bury, they still haven't decided what they're going to do. Because Bury as a club is still trying to continue and trying to survive. But sort of half the fan base have moved on and are trying to set up a Phoenix club, which is a problem that Chichester, who were meant to be playing Bury in the FA Cup draw that was made this week, are going to have a problem when they've said they're going to donate some of the money towards them. It's the fact that at the moment you've kind of got two Bury football clubs on the go, which it's not an easy situation for any football fan.
Indeed, it definitely is not. If you'd like to join the debate and speak to George, you can do. It's very easy to do so. 0208 70 20 558. You can WhatsApp us on that number as well, or tweet us as you tend to do on Love Sport Radio, at Love Sport Radio, I should say. George, there was one game this week, however, which we are going to reflect on now, and it was the game with Burton. I mean, plenty coming up in the show. We're going to reflect on the Burton game. Of course, there is a new man at the helm, a Mr. Glyn Hodges. Wally Downs, of course, has now parted company with the club, and such a shame. The news was announced, but 5 minutes after we'd finished last week's show, so we weren't able to talk about it on air. A real shame, that one. However, we can talk about it this week. Glyn Hodges, the new boss. Like you said, there is going to be an academy and development squad update and a loan watch as well. I love your loan watches. And then at the end of the show, we've got that Lincoln preview. Of course, the Imps coming up next. But first, Burton 1-0 at the Pirelli Stadium.
Yeah, we went on it on the show last week. We were saying we've never won at Burton. We historically play poorly against them regardless of the result. I think before this game we'd lost our last game against them 3-0 and 2-0. So it was only a 1-0 defeat, but the performance was poor. It was a poor performance. It was our worst performance since Wally was suspended in the first place. And it was a worrying sign that maybe this progression has halted, and we just need to make sure we don't fall back into old habits of looking tired and not being up for it. Whereas against Portsmouth and against Rochdale and Southend, we looked up for it and we were fighting for it. Whereas Burton, it just felt like one game too many in such a short period of time.
It was a tricky one, wasn't it? Because it didn't, like you said, it didn't look like the Wimbledon we've seen since Glyn took over.
Yeah, and it was one of those, I think we were hindered so much by the fixture, the fact it came after Portsmouth, and the fact it was such an emotional game where we scored, last kick of the game in the sort of 90th minute, and it took a lot of energy out of the players. Then having a reasonably long distance journey on the Tuesday, I just think it meant the players didn't have enough prep time, and it just meant the players weren't really up for it and weren't really ready for it. And I think that really showed on the night, because a lot of players who are normally, very consistent, people like Scott Wagstaff, Anthony Wordsworth, You know, they weren't up to their usual standard, and that was disappointing.
It was disappointing. Of course, it wasn't Glyn Hodges' first official game in charge. That was announced, I believe, after the game. Here's what he had to say on that defeat.
We want a run of good wins, and we felt that the boys should have shown that confidence going on the pitch and that belief to make it the fifth. There was no reason why we shouldn't have done, and I just think it just didn't get going first half, and the quality we gave too many unforced errors, which we haven't been doing of late. But I suppose that's football, and we got in a half time and changed it round a bit and had a bit more oomph about us, but without really testing the goal. That was disappointing. The set pieces weren't as good as they had been. Deliveries into the box weren't as good as everything. So it's just the quality of let us down. But we had a go and causing problems without getting that goal.
Pretty matter of fact, that wasn't it?
Yeah, no,
Really?
Glyn's never going to say anything controversial in a post-match. He's not that sort of character. He's going to be very matter-of-fact, very honest, but not controversial in a way that some people were hoping Wally would be when he first came in.
Which Wally wasn't either, was he?
No, Wally
just
wasn't.
kind of trod the company line and said he basically decoded the game without really going any
And
further.
I think that disappointed a few because, when you think of Wally Downs, the crazy gang and all of that, and I think when he first came in, people thought, he'll be able to say what the fans are saying leaving the ground. Wally will say that in his post-match interviews, which of course was never going to happen, and it didn't. And I think that kind of left a few people slightly disappointed.
Well, on the game itself, there were positives, of course. One, Jack Madlyn, of course, making his senior debut.
Yeah, Jack Madlyn, we mentioned him last week because he got his first sort of match-day involvement with the first team on the bench against Portsmouth. He didn't come on. He came on for the last 10 minutes against Burton when Ryan Delaney got injured and had to come off. But Jack Madlyn's someone who hasn't got a lot of attention from a lot of our fan base because he's just unfortunate is that he's in a same year group as Archie Proctor, who's, one of the poster boy for that age group. It's a year below Ruben Collins, who was the poster boy for that age group as well, all in his position. So he's kind of gone under the radar. He's a Welsh under-17 international. He made like I said, he got 10 minutes on Tuesday and looked very good. He was very assured. He had won pretty much all of his aerial battles, pretty much 100% pass completion rate in his 10 minutes playing from centre-back. And he had a good, solid debut, and he was rewarded with that by signing his first pro contract on Wednesday.
It was good, wasn't it? I saw the images from the ground as well, and him signing and shaking hands across the deal, and the great interview in the changing room, I think it was, as well, with the personnel there as well. Michael Hamilton as well, also saying that, and they produced that photo, when he first signed for the club, there's a great image of him and he's up to my shoulder. And I think what was also really interesting, and I think this was almost a statement of intent from Glyn Hodges, where, Michael Hamilton said, he came to me and said, in 4 or 5 years' time, I want to be putting out an 11 fully made up of youth team players.
And that's great. I mean, that's what, obviously what most football fans want. And you can see it. There is a pathway now where you can see a large majority of our first team squad or of our starting 11 coming through our academy. And you could never see that under Neil. You just didn't see that pathway being there. But, just that, going back to that photo of Jack Madlyn, the other player who signed that day for the academy was Asazi Urhood. I can't pronounce his surname for the life of me.
Try again,
Asazi. We're going to call him Asazi. But he signed for Sheffield Wednesday this summer, so it's another success story for the academy. And it just goes to show how well the academy doing. The fact that, 3 of our sort of players who have played centre-back for us, which is traditionally a position which you get senior pros in, 3 of them have come through our academy. And I think that's really telling. And you look, I know we'll come on to the youth team a bit later, but it's so encouraging to see him doing so well.
Absolutely, it is. Nesta Guinness-Walker as well, coming off the bench. First time in a while for him. Yeah,
Nesta's been out of the sort of not been playing a huge amount recently since Wally left in the first place, because Paul Lossu's been coming in doing really well. Paul Lossu struggled a bit on Tuesday night. They had a really physical guy playing right wing matched up against Paul, and he really struggled. So even if the defensive set pieces, our left wing back wasn't anywhere near our penalty area just because Paul was mismatched physically. So it wasn't really a surprise when Nesta came on, who, even though Nesta isn't huge, he's much bigger than Paul. And that it was just really a match to make sure that their number 9, who was playing on the right, just didn't get too much space and too much sort of wasn't a target man out wide because they were always using him as an outlet.
Okay. And news on Ryan Delaney. What's the crack there?
Yeah, Ryan Delaney, it was an odd one on Tuesday because we brought Paul Kalambai off in a tactical change to go 4-3-3. Then shortly after that, Ryan Delaney got what appeared to be a head injury. and that was what sort of freed up room for Jack Madlyn to come on and play centre-back. And it was just one of those where you look at it and there wasn't anything major. When we saw it, no one thought it was anything serious, but then obviously he's had to come off. So we're lucky if it's a head injury. We're lucky we didn't play this Saturday, and I'd imagine he'll be back for our next game against Lincoln.
Okay. There is one thing I reckon you might have been doing this weekend. There was a memorabilia fair, wasn't there, at the club?
Yeah,
you must be the type who goes to one of those.
Yeah, I couldn't make it this year, but I am the type that normally tries to get to them, yes.
Are you a collector of sorts, pin badges, programmes, memorabilia? What?
Memorabilia, normally.
Just in general?
Yeah, generic AFC Wimbledon, Wimbledon FC memorabilia.
Yeah? What does that include?
Everything. Signed shirts, sort of programmes from big historical games, that sort of thing.
Okay. Have you got like a bedroom that you're going to decorate with AFC Wimbledon stuff? Is that what you've got? Or a room in your house or something that's a shrine?
I've got a bit too much stuff to fill one room at the moment.
Have you really?
Yeah.
Okay, lovely. Well, all round to George Jones's house to see his AFC Wimbledon memorabilia. This is the AFC Wimbledon Fan Show on Love Sport. Remember, if you want to get in touch, very easy to do so at Love Sport Radio or 0208 7020 558. You can WhatsApp us on that number as well. Up next, we are going to be talking about the managerial situation.
Giving your team a voice. Love Sport Radio.
You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage.
Tenna men. Pants and pads.
You're
discreet. Masculine.
You're
secure absorption zone. Buy online or in shops.
You're in
Tenna men. Keep control.
Urine?
No.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. Brexit will bring changes that affect businesses in many ways, particularly if you buy from EU suppliers, sell to EU customers, provide services to EU clients, and receive customer data from other businesses in the EU. Businesses need to prepare. Find out how at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
Exercise. It doesn't have to mean Lycra or a fancy gym membership. All you need is 10 minutes and you. Because a regular 10-minute brisk walk is a great way to get more active. Whether that's walking to the shops or getting off the bus to stop early. Picking up the pace and getting your heart pumping can make a real difference to your health. So, to see how much brisk walking you're doing and how you can fit more into your day, download the free Active 10 app, because there's only one you.
I love my brother. We do fun things like playing together. I like having hugs with Freddie. Freddie gives the best hugs. Freddie used to be very poorly, and the doctor said he might need a new liver. Then one day, a very nice person gave their liver to Freddie. It was amazing. We were so happy. Now he's around to give me more hugs than ever.
Tell your family you want to save lives. To find out more, visit organdonation.nhs.uk.
This is Love Sport.
It's the AFC Wimbledon Fan Show on Love Sport. Me, Matt Beadle, here with George Jones of the 9 Years podcast. Now, there is some incredible news this week, of course, that, George, you will be reacting to in a moment. Wally Downs has gone. Where's Wally? He's gone. Did you ever watch the TV show as a kid? I suppose you wouldn't have done. You're probably slightly too young. Do you remember that show?
Slightly too young.
Where is Wally?
Yeah,
Where
I'm
is
slightly
Wally?
too young for that.
Where? No, I don't remember it.
No.
Okay, there we go. Well, Wally Downs, of course, has moved on, and his buddy old pal Glyn Hodges has stepped into the hot seat. He was speaking to the club earlier this week upon his appointment.
I've enjoyed the last, this month's been fantastic, and the fans have been great, and the scenes at the weekend at the end. It's nice to get on the good side of that late goal for a change, I'll be just trying my hardest. We're going to go for it again, so there's an opportunity here, and we're back in the pack, as it were. We're back up there. We're not adrift, so we just got to keep producing and keep performing and keep believing, and take the club forward. I can't fully articulate it enough, but to been here as a young apprentice of 16 years old, and to return and actually get the job, and with an opportunity to take the club back to Plough Lane. I mean, it's what dreams are made of, and we just got to make sure we're going to have a team that the fans are proud of, and it really gives us a real start when we move back in.
and that is Glyn Hodges on his appointment, of course, as AFC Wimbledon's main man in the hot seat. He is the new manager of the club. George, your thoughts?
I think it's the right appointment. I said on the show that, the decision had to be made regarding Wally, and that I did think Glyn, based on the run of results, while he was caretaker, because up until Tuesday, he'd had only one bad 45 minutes in his spell in 5 games. So for me, Glyn was the right person to come in. I still think that even after Tuesday. And, personally, I don't think there was many other candidates, easy candidates you could pinpoint and say, yeah, they could come in and improve things more than Glyn already has. So I think it was the obvious choice.
I've enjoyed the Twitter this week, I have to say, the tribute to Glyn and his ex-days as a Wimbledon player. It's enjoyable, and I guess in the same sense, it is a continuation. Listen, he's Wally Downs' friend. He is an ex-player of the club. He is ingrained in the culture of the club, and we had this discussion on the show, didn't we? Does it need to be an ex-player? Does it need to be someone that knows all about AFC Wimbledon? And Glyn Hodges does.
Yeah, I don't think it has to be an ex-player. In fact, most cases I'd rather it isn't an ex-player. But it's very important they understand the club and understand the tradition and understand why we're different to every other Football League club. And I think that that's so important, and Glyn gets that. And I think you're right, it is a continuation, not just that, but the backroom staff as well. Because Mark Robinson's got in a sort of a bigger role. He's more involved with the first team than he was before. Vaughan Ryan's staying on as first team coach, and Nick Dawes is coming from head of recruitment into assistant manager. So, it's very much a continuation of what was there before, because I think we're just hoping it had started to turn around. Let's hope it can continue in that way.
Can I ask you what you think of the silence surrounding Wally Downs? Like, we've literally, I personally haven't seen anything at all.
No,
Nothing from Wally whatsoever.
But I called this last week. I said once the club will release a statement saying this is the outcome, if he's gone, there'll be a statement saying he's gone, and then the name won't ever be mentioned again, because that's what happened the last time we sacked a manager for disciplinary issues, was the official reason. And I called that last week, and it's been clear that is what's going to happen. The statement came out on Sunday night last week saying he's been gone, and there won't be anything else coming out mentioning his name or involving him from sort of the foreseeable future.
That's upsetting, no? And I know you got on your moral high horse not so long ago when all of this came out, and the fact that if he was indeed found guilty, which he was, of the betting allegations that were made, that you don't want that type of character in your football club, and it's not right, because we do need to be lawful and we shouldn't commit these offences. But Wally Downs is a guy who has heaps of history with the club, so to just go in complete silence and never be mentioned again, like, it's just quite sad. It's quite upsetting.
Yeah, I know it is, but that's the way, as a club, we do tend to have this habit of just closing rank. Like, our first ever manager since when we reformed was sacked for a disciplinary issue. It wasn't FA, it was an internal issue, and was sacked because of that. His name, not mentioned, and pretty much scrubbed from all record books. And he was our first ever manager. And that's just the way the club deals with these things, because I think it is something that isn't necessarily the right, because Wally, he played a role in keeping us up last year, and he was a brilliant player for us, in the 80s. So it's a shame it's how it's ended the way it's ended, but it's happened now. We can't change what's happened. Wally made those bets. He's been convicted by the FA. And I think realistically, closing rank is the only way of doing it.
So with regards to the previous manager that you won't name, you're obviously naming Wally now. Are we going to get to a point where next week, the week after, that you yourself go, I can't say that manager's name?
No, I think we can. Wally's slightly different because, Wally kept us up. He achieved great things for us, and he had a record with us in the past and as a player which will always be remembered, whereas the previous manager didn't so much. And it's also like the fact that, a lot of our fans do see this as a very trivial sort of bending of the rules, is the way some of our fans are wording it. I don't view it that way, but some view it as a very minor offence.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at it, and even the transcript from the FA hearing that has come out this week, this is something that basically even the FA said the offence is committed while he was with us. he wouldn't be banned based on those offences. It's the offences at QPR, which he was banned for 28 days because of the offences committed while he was at QPR. And I think some of our fans see that as, oh, he's been sort of, the club have treated him poorly and all of that. So I think Wally will always hold, it's not as unanimous as the decision regarding our former manager was amongst the fan base. I'll just put it like that.
Well, we've had a WhatsApp in from Mod Womble, your good friend Mod Womble, who has said the silence on Wally is shocking and Womble should understand that the guy is a legend. The board does not have a link to the history of the Wombles. Absolutely shocking.
I don't know what do you want the club to do here? Because basically in the statement they paid tribute for him for his role in keeping us up last year. What more can they actually do? Because this is something now where, whatever way you view it, he has brought the club into disrepute this season because of what's happened with the hearing. Do you want to bring that up? You can't keep bringing that up. This year we need to move on from this. Glyn's in charge now. Nick Dawes is assistant. We need to try and move on from this and put what's happened so far this season behind us.
Absolutely, I agree with you. I'm just going to tell you that Mod Womble is typing. Listen, Mod, you've been in touch a few times. Why not give us a call, boss? 0208 70 20 558. I'd love to hear you and Mr. Jones go head to head. George, just before we get that response in from Mod Womble, what is Glyn Hodges' remit now in terms of his tenure at AFC Wimbledon? Currently 21st in the table, 12 points from 15 games. You obviously won the previous 3 prior to losing that game against Burton. Not his first official game, as I said. His first official game will be this weekend. So, of course, or next weekend, I should say. So we can maybe push that Burton game to the side. But what, in your opinion, is his remit?
Well, I think, the obvious one is trying to fight to stay up because we're within touching distance. The results yesterday went pretty much as well as they possibly could have for us, apart from one game getting postponed. It's one of those where his priority has to be trying to keep us up, but trying to continue the work Wally started of trying to blood young homegrown players, because that will benefit us. It may not be the best thing for the club this season, but we'll really see that sort of benefit the club in 2-3 years' time.
Yeah, I agree with you. He's still typing, by the way, so I tell you what, this could be a long response, mate. And elsewhere in League One yesterday, I suppose we can have a quick look at the results. Anything in particular stand out for you? Ipswich, of course, going back to the top of League One. Wycombe Wanderers still riding high in second spot. Of course, they got their victory as well. Peterborough dropped down. It was quite a frenetic clash with Coventry there at London Road. A lot going on.
Yeah, no, it was Sol Campbell's first game in charge at Southend. They lost that to, Ipswich had lost their last 2 games 2-0 before going into that. So they were on a bad run and they still beat Southend. Even though the result wasn't comfortable, it was a fairly comfortable performance for them. And I think for us now, you're looking at Bolton, they're in serious trouble. I know they got their first win of the season on Tuesday against Bristol.
Well, that's an understatement to say they're in serious trouble. I mean, listen, surely they're gone, George.
You can never write a team off at this stage of the season.
Okay.
What Bolton have been through, they will have a fight and they will spend a lot of money in January to try and buy their way out of this. Southend could be in serious trouble. So I think you look at it, you've got us, Tranmere, the team the under-18s played this week. All of those teams are in and around the drop zone, and I think we need to try and keep getting results. And I think it's realistic we could stay up. And like I said, they went pretty much, apart from I think it was the Tranmere game that got postponed yesterday. I think apart from that, all of the results went our way.
I think it's 100% realistic that you can stay up, George. Quite, I wouldn't want to do this show if that wasn't the case. But with regards to that drop zone, and we suppose we can call it that now, 15 games in, Bolton, of course, minus 5 points. Listen, if they put a string of wins together, you never quite know in this division. You never quite know in the Football League, to be fair. But it looks very unlikely. Southend are horrendous at the moment.
Southend are the worst team I've seen since we got into the Football League when we played them a couple of weeks ago. They are in serious, serious trouble. And if you take away the points deductions, they're below Bolton.
Yeah.
And Bolton were playing their kids for the first month of the season. So that tells you all you need to know about how well Southend are doing.
And a 7-1 hammering at home by Doncaster during the week. Of course, Sol Campbell in the stands for that game. Very much the manager in that clash with Ipswich. A little Football League bit of activity I'm sure you would have loved from that game, with the fact that a fan had to come on and act as the 4th official in that game at Roots Hall. But yes, plenty going on. Of course, at Accrington as well, they offered the Gillingham fans a free hot drink because of the horrendous conditions. All they had to do was take their ticket to the kiosk and get a free hot drink.
Yeah. Accrington are brilliant like that. They've got Andy Holt, who's chairman up there, and he's, in my opinion, one of the best chairmen in the Football League. He's one of the very few chairmen of other clubs that I would take at our club. I think he's brilliant for them, and you look at the initiatives he does for, Accrington, the local community there, and his ways of trying to engage with away fans. Like, it's fairly often they do something like that, give away fans a drink or something, especially when the weather's bad. And he's managing the way a football club should be owned and controlled. And I think we do need to praise the right ones, not just moan about the bad owners.
100% agree with you. We got the response in, George. We have got the response in. This is breaking news from Mod Womble. He has just said in response, I just want the club to understand and have a link to the history. Never forget the old school fans. We surely have a voice. The board, except for a couple of members, are disconnected from the fans. So what we often have here, and I noticed that this has occurred on a couple of occasions. You and Kevin Boras, very good friends. You get on splendidly well, but there are occasions when obviously there is, and listen, we don't want to go over old ground here, but the Wimbledon before the Reformation and those fans that obviously still exist now, and you'll find self who have been a fan of AFC Wimbledon since the start.
Yeah, no, I think there is certainly, I know a couple of people who do agree with what he's saying, and that there is a disconnect from some of our older fans about the way this has been handled. But I don't think there is a way the club could have handled this differently, and there is that connection. We are going back to Plough Lane. We have got a former player as our manager. We are playing Wimbledon football of developing young players, signing players from non-league or the Welsh leagues, and trying to develop them and sell them on. And I think that is something that needs to be looked at. But if he's really upset, the Don's Trust election is a couple of weeks, and I'm sure with the views like that, he'll be a Don's Trust member so he can vote in them.
There we go, a Don's Trust member. Does he have to speak to Hannah Kitcher about that?
He can speak to any Don's Trust board member he wants.
Absolutely. Lovely stuff. Okay, well, it is worth noting as well, aside from all of this, that Glyn did pay tribute to Wally, right? He referenced Wally in his interview after he was appointed. So I would imagine, and look, Kevin, again, said on this show many times that he thought even when Wally hadn't been sacked at this point, that Glyn was in interim charge, that they were in contact via WhatsApp or text or whatever it was, Snapchat maybe, who knows? Who knows what these new managers do these days? But they would have been in contact then, and I would imagine, reading between the lines, that friendship is going to stay strong.
Yeah, no, it is. And Glyn's basically come out and said he spoke to Wally when he was offered it, and those two were in contact from when Glyn was offered it as caretaker and when Glyn was offered it permanently. They've said that. And, those are two that have known each other for 30 years or so now. So I think it's one of those things that will make it easier for Wally to sort of swallow what's happened, is because he's got a mate that's, his best mate is continuing in charge.
Absolutely. Those are the thoughts of George Jones. Delighted with the appointment of Glyn Hodges as the permanent AFC Wimbledon manager. Next up, we have got an academy and development squad update, and of course, that trusty George Jones Loan Watch.
Love sport. Love Sport Breakfast with Richard Lee and Patrick Christie's.
This is my analogy I like to give for those who play blackjack. And again, we don't recommend you play blackjack on this show, and if you do gamble responsibly. But if you play blackjack, of course, you roll the dice, you get your cards. It's a game of 21, basically. You don't roll your dice, sorry. You get the cards. Take rolls of the dice. I'm mixing up two games. You get your cards. Anyway, it's a game of...
You put the magic beans under the cup, and you just whiz it around. We all know.
We know the game.
You flick the switch, the metal ball rolls down and traps the mouse.
And then you see if you bluff the other person. But no,
and if the mechanical donkey bucks off all the items that you put on it, then you've lost blackjack.
And that is
triple word score.
And that is Hungry Hippos.
Weekdays from 6 a.m.
You all right, mate? Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it, sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
I'm Leslie from North Essex. I couldn't believe that after 5 minutes I'd saved over £900 on my energy bills. When my car insurance was then due for renewal, I went back to a spokesman said and reduced my premium by over £500. I thought that my home insurance was expensive. When I shopped around on a spokesman said, I saved a staggering £1,100. I've saved £2,500. I cannot believe it was that easy.
A spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you're driving on a motorway and you see a red X sign overhead, you need to change lanes safely. Driving in a red X lane is an offence. Red X's are there for a reason, to protect you and others from danger. The lane may be blocked by a broken down vehicle, or road workers, or the lane may be needed for the emergency services. So if you see a red X, change lanes safely. Highways England, connecting the country.
Brilliant, I've finally quit.
I can keep up with my kids now.
I feel like I've got my life back.
It's an amazing feeling when you stop smoking. Experience it for yourself with help from Smoke Free. Our range of free support can help you quit for good, from our app to emails, face-to-face and online communities. Search Smoke Free, because there's only one you.
As a busy mum, you're juggling loads of things. And when your kids are ill, you just want to help them feel better. But you don't always need antibiotics to help them get better. For things like sore throats, coughs and colds, you can get advice from your local pharmacy. And you don't need an appointment. To find your nearest pharmacy, search NHS Choices.
This is Love Sport.
It's the AFC Wimbledon fan show on Love Sport. Myself, Matt Beadle, here with George Jones of the 9 Years podcast. We're with you until 9 p.m. this evening. So if there's anything that you'd like to say about the game in the week against Burton, that defeat at the Pirelli Stadium, 1-0, of course, not Glyn Hodges' first game in charge. He has been appointed manager, but it wasn't official before that game. So his first game in charge will be the clash with Lincoln this weekend. If you'd like to talk about Wally Downs departing, if you'd like to talk about Glyn, of course, becoming the permanent manager, if you'd just like to talk about AFC Wimbledon in general and anything else that tickles that little fancy of yours, do get in touch. 0208 70 20 558. You can WhatsApp us on that number as well, or tweet us at Love Sport Radio. George, we have had a tweet in from Tony Shepherd who has said Don's trust election will give the people who think the board members need to be changed and a chance to make changes. I'm presuming that is in response to your little back and forth with Mod Womble just then.
Yeah, no, and I think that's something that, I did try and say it there, that, we've got elections coming up. There are 5 places on the Don's Trust board coming up in this election cycle. The 9 Years podcast are hosting live hustings next Sunday. All day. We'll announce timing shortly. But for people who want to get involved and feel that, the club have handled this or anything else badly, get involved. Send us questions on the day. We can ask them to the candidates or just vote. Make sure your voice is heard. And then, if enough people feel that way, then there will be change.
There will be change. If you want your voice heard, like George Jones has his voice heard on this very radio station on most Sundays throughout the year, do what the man says. So details are coming up.
Yeah, details will be released by the 9 Years podcast and the Don's Trust, hopefully early this week.
Okay, we are going to move on in a moment to that Loan Watch and the Academy and Development Squad update. But before we do that, there was an FA Cup draw, my friend.
There was the FA Cup draw on Monday night, and we were all slightly disappointed because we were still in that towards the end as the bye was about to be drawn. But we ended up with Doncaster at home, which is as boring as it could possibly get.
It's tough, isn't it, when you get these FA Cup draws and it's with a team that's currently in your division and you just think, oh, crikey, there's nothing exciting about that whatsoever.
I mean, that's the thing. It's a team who are doing well in our division. It's a home game. It's a very tough game. It's, we go into it as underdogs. So after that, I know we talked about on the show before the draw, saying that, these things, you normally have a great year, 1 year where you get all the luck in the draws, and then you have a really bad year. And last year we got really lucky. We had 2 non-league teams in the first 2 rounds, then a team in our league in the 3rd round, then West Ham, who we beat. This year we've got a very, very tough game in the first round. And it's a very tough game for us. And to think we could have had a bye and then we're 90 minutes away from getting a game which will, change the club in terms of the money we could raise from it.
Yeah, absolutely. But of course, as you know, it could well change the fortunes of Chichester, who got that bye. And listen, those scenes were incredible, and you can appreciate that as a football fan. That must have been a wonderful moment for them.
No, I think every club and every fan of every club who was in that draw, if their club didn't get the bye, they wanted one of the lowest ranked clubs left to get it. And it's just one of those, because Chichester are now 90 minutes away from getting like Man United or someone in the FA Cup. And for them, like when Crawley got Man United away a few years ago, they earned £7 million from it. So just imagine what that money could do for a club at Chichester's level. That would change them for decades to come. And, I'm really glad that Chichester have got the opportunity. They've got the prize money. They're giving some of it to Bury or a supporters trust of Bury. But it's great that it's a non-league club that have got that bye. If it wasn't going to be us,
absolutely, it was an incredible thing. And you're right about Crawley. Spoke to a few players since then, and they still harp on about that as their greatest moment in football. If you could have a dream draw in the FA Cup, who would it be, George?
Well, I think with my head, I'm saying Man United away, just because if you raise £5 to £7 million, that's our budget for a year or 2 years. So for the whole club. So, but really, I quite fancy Tottenham away at their new stadium, because I think we could probably win that this season.
But I tell you what, though, do you know what? I reckon you'd be disappointed with the refreshments. It's all too fancy pants, mate. There's people ordering toppings for pizzas. They're going to get pad thai. They're eating Thai. They're eating Chinese. They're eating sweet and sour chicken. All you want is a pie and a pasty, maybe a burger and a pint at football. None of this fancy Dan stuff, mate.
We'll have to get Stuart Deakins, who's the 90s podcast food expert, involved for this section.
Excellent. Okay, we'll get him on. Stuart, if you're listening, give us a call, mate. 0208 7020 558. But now it is time for our Loan Watch.
Oh yeah, it's time for Kevin's Loan Watch.
A little homage to our 9 years podcast alumni there, Kevin Boras. It is time for the Loan Watch on the AFC Wimbledon Fan Show. George, give us a rundown.
Yeah, it's a great week for this week. Jack Rudoni played in the Tonbridge Angels again. The result didn't go their way against Wealdstone. Ayub Asal played brilliantly for the Metropolitan Police in a 4-3 win over Tilbury. Ruben Collins was out injured, but Zach Robinson played for Basingstoke in their FA Trophy tie away to Melksham. And Leatherhead, Tommy Wood scored 2 goals again for them. He's on fire for them right now. And Finley McNabb got an assist as Leatherhead beat Ware again in the FA Trophy. Dylan Connolly's game at Bradford was postponed. But it's great to see people like Tommy Wood and Ayub Asal doing so well out on loan. Tommy Wood's been on fire for Leatherhead this season.
Yeah, he has, absolutely. Elsewhere, Basingstoke, Ruben Collins and Zach Robinson.
Yeah, Ruben's been out injured. I understand it's precautionary. They just don't want to take any risks with it at the moment. Zach obviously played. He did well from what I've heard from people at the game. And it was just a very encouraging performance for them. Melksham away. It's one of those games which it's a slip-up tie for Basingstoke. And it didn't go their way, but I'm hearing Zach played well in that game. And like I said, Rudoni at Tonbridge Angels also played well, even though they lost as well.
So did you not consider actually going to any of these games this weekend?
I did look, but Melksham is very difficult to get to.
Is it really?
Yes.
I don't even know where Melksham is. Where is Melksham?
Somewhere near Bristol.
Oh, right. Crikey. Okay. Last but not least, Dylan Connelly.
Yeah, Dylan Connelly, like I said, he was out. He's out on loan at Bradford. Their game got postponed this week. But it'll be interesting to see because Wally sent Dylan out on loan. So it'll be interesting to see whether he comes back in January because he's been doing brilliantly at Bradford, or if he comes back just in the summer, if he has a future with our club. And that's something we're all going to be watching closely.
Now for the Academy and Development Squad update, boss. An under-18s game on Saturday.
Yeah, the 18s, like I said, they played MK on Saturday and we won. And they were able to do the double over them. And, for the 18s, that's a great thing. Rob Tuvey's the under-18s manager this year. It's his first year doing it. He's born and raised Wimbledon fan, so to do the double over them in his first season means so much to him. Hussein Belair and Jack Curry scored in that game. And I know there were a couple of fans who went. I wasn't comfortable going to it. But it's so great to see the 18s, do the double over them because it will mean so much to Rob and all the players.
Yeah, indeed. Elsewhere, an FA Cup, Youth Cup preview, sorry.
Yeah, the FA Youth Cup game is being played this Tuesday at Kingsmeadow. We're playing Leighton Orient, who the under-18s beat 7-2 in the league game earlier this season.
Wowzers.
So it's a very winnable game for us. And we've got Ayub Asal, who's out on loan, Zach Robinson, who are out on loan. They'll both be back eligible to play in that competition. So we will be at full strength in that. And tickets are very cheap, obviously, from the club. And it'll be great if we can get a crowd there and see the next generation of, these players who will be like Jack Madlyn, I think, is going to play as well. But the next generation of Paul Kalambais or Will Nightingales who are going to come in and break into the first team over the next 2 or 3 seasons. And, it's a great opportunity because the 18s have started this season so well. It'll be great if we can get a crowd down to support them on Tuesday night.
What's the likelihood of that, the reality of getting a decent crowd down there?
We normally do quite well. They get normally better crowds than our Checker Trade Trophy first team games doing those competitions. And we're a club that's got decent record in this. We've got to the last 16, I think, 2 of the last 3 years. So for a club of our size, that's, incredible. A couple of years ago, we beat Watford and Newcastle and, match Chelsea for large periods of a game. We've beaten Huddersfield and Preston as well in this competition. It's a competition we do really well in. It'll be so great if we can get a good crowd in on Tuesday night to try and support them.
Okay, well, before we move on, of course, you do have Lincoln coming up this weekend. A good interview from Marcus Force this week as well, basically explaining why he decided to join AFC Wimbledon. I mean, I mention this every week now, and we speak to the guys from Besotted, the Brentford Fans Show, and they are so disappointed that Force was allowed to go on loan to AFC Wimbledon. Desperately would love him to come back in January, although having said that, recent results seem to have perked up a bit at Brentford, so maybe not such a clamour now. But he was very open, wasn't he? He does seem to be very open when he has his interviews, and he said that he needed to improve upon the tiny things in his game. He came to AFC Wimbledon because he wanted first team football. He didn't just want the 20 minutes here and there. He wanted to be playing first team football, and it's working out.
Yeah, no, it's great. He got minutes again. He got 90 minutes on Tuesday against Burton, and he's one of these who it is getting better. He had a chance, could have got another goal on Saturday against Portsmouth last week, and he's coming on well. And the main problem is Brentford have released a statement today saying one of their strikers is out injured for a long time, and I think all Wimbledon fans know on January 2nd he's going back.
You resigned to it, are you?
I think pretty much all Wimbledon fans know it would take something. Glyn will have to pull something incredible off to get him to stay for the full season, the way things are at Brentford at the moment. And the other problem is, like I said, I know we touched on the FA Cup game, but if he's going back in January, that'll be the indicator, because if he's going to go back in January, Brentford won't let him play in the first round of the Cup.
Oh, crikey. So, the ninth could be the indicator. If he's not in that team...
Yeah, I think that'll be the very strong indicator of, where Brentford are thinking, are they even considering recalling him? Because they might sort of say, we'll leave it and wait till January. But if he's playing, I think that's fairly conclusive. They're saying he's doing well, let's just give him a full year.
Speaking of January, we are not really on early doors. It's a couple of months. It's only a matter of moments. I mean, they already have, to be fair, that the Sky Sports ticker will start ticking along and giving us a whole load of guff with stuff that isn't true, complete conjecture, and then they'll completely contradict themselves as well. However, the January window isn't far away. If you could strengthen, where would you, and who potentially would you like to see come into the club?
I think one of the things that we need to look at is maybe signing an extra midfielder, signing a midfield enforcer, because I think that's what was lacking on Tuesday. It's been lacking against Portsmouth as well. I just think someone who could come in and shore up the midfield, because all of the players we've got in midfield, with the exception of Wordsworth, get on the ball and, they don't like doing the ugly stuff. And I think if we can have just one midfielder who can do the ugly stuff, that would really improve our sort of defensive and, ability to hang into games. But also a number 9 who we've been missing all season. We've been crying out for one for probably ever since Tom Elliott left. Crying out for a proper number 9 target man. Hopefully there's something that comes in January. But, our budget is tight this year. Sorry, Mark Hendricks, but our budget is very tight this year. And I think that, that's the other thing with the FA Cup game, is the fact that it's not a TV game. So we've lost out on a huge amount of revenue already. And it's a tough game. So if we lose in that, then there's probably next to nothing to spend in January. It's not like last year where in our first 2 games we won both of the FA Cup games. They were both on TV, and we had what was viewed as a winnable 3rd round tie against Fleetwood, and then a 4th round game which was still in the transfer window and on TV. And it's just last year that was what funded our January spend last year. And this year, if we don't have that, I'm not sure we'll be able to get anyone in unless, someone comes in bidding silly money for one of our players.
That is George Jones of the 9 Years podcast. On this, the AFC Wimbledon Fan Show on Love Sport. Next up, we are going to be looking ahead to that home clash with Lincoln next Saturday.
Love Sport Radio, the station giving fans a voice.
You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage.
Tenna men. Pants and pads.
You're
discreet. Masculine.
You're
secure absorption zone. Buy online or in shops.
You're
Tenna men. Keep control.
Urine?
No.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. Find out what you need to do to prepare at gov.uk/Brexit.
Are you paying way too much for your energy bills? A spokesman said could help you save big money. With electricity costs continuing to rise, you could save hundreds of pounds by shopping around. Just go to aspokesmansaid.com and look for the very best value energy deals on the market. Don't waste your hard-earned cash. You could be on a much cheaper deal. Go to aspokesmansaid.com.
Fighting for you, saving you money.
Making small changes to your lifestyle could improve your chances of staying healthier longer. Start now by taking our free How Are You quiz. Just search 1U.
As a parent, you always want to protect your kids, so make sure their vaccinations are up to date. Measles and whooping cough are on the rise and can cause severe illness, but childhood vaccinations can help prevent them. Are your child's up to date? Find out more. Search online for NHS vaccinations.
Brilliant, I've finally quit.
I can keep up with my kids now.
I feel like I've got my life back.
It's an amazing feeling when you stop smoking. Experience it for yourself with help from Smoke Free. Our range of free support can help you quit for good. From our app to emails, face-to-face and online communities. Search Smoke Free, because there's only one you.
Love sport.
This is Love Sport Radio. This is the AFC Wimbledon Fan Show on Love Sport Radio. I am Matt Beadle on the AFC Wimbledon Fan Show on Love Sport Radio, and I'm joined by George Jones of the 9 Years podcast on the AFC Wimbledon Fan Show on Love Sport Radio. Hi, George.
Hi. Yeah, it's going well. I feel this show's going well.
Yeah, mate, we're buzzing. We're pumped. It's good. We're loving it. We're now going to move on and look ahead to the clash with Lincoln next week, of course, which League One's all over the hockey this season, mate. I'm not going to lie to you. Obviously, AFC Wimbledon didn't play this week because you were due to play Bury. Of course, that game didn't go ahead because Bury are not in League One at present. And, of course, Lincoln were due to play Bolton. That game was postponed. So both teams in the unusual scenario of having a free week.
Yeah, I mean, Lincoln's game, they would have done all the prep work because the Bolton game was called off, about midday on the day, actually, because of the rain. So it was a fairly late postponement for them. So they haven't had a proper build-up rest week like we have for that. They haven't had a game, but they would have still done all the prep work and for that game, whereas we've had 10 days focusing solely on Lincoln, which, to be honest, is a side which is probably not the best side to have the 10 days prep for. Because you look, the wheels have fallen off since the Cowleys have left. So they're very much a wild card of when is that form going to turn around, And you look at Lincoln, and they're not a huge amount there. I mean, I know they've got John Akinde, who we were after when he was at Barnet. The sort of player who we could actually do with, a big number 9, a big target man. But Lincoln are a side who we played them a couple of years ago in the FA Cup. They're a good side, and, even the form they're in and the sort of supposed form we're in up until Tuesday, it's a very tough game for us, and one that, the way results have gone over the last 2 match days in the league, if we win, all of a sudden we're out of the relegation zone, and there's a lot of teams on a bad run heading towards it.
Indeed. Okay, so fortune's turning upward again, George. I like it. You're very erratic in this show, mate. At one point you're saying, it's realistic, we might get out. Now you're saying, I'll tell you what, we're definitely going to be out of there. You alluded to that FA Cup game, so the only meeting between the sides, of course, 4th of November 2017. The score was?
That was a 1-0, was it?
It was, and the scorer was?
Oh, no, that's a challenge. It wasn't Lyle, was it?
It was Lyle, mate. It was Lyle, of course, who is gradually, steadily coming back to fitness at Charlton, of course. What a player he is, by the way.
He was, we were watching him at Wimbledon, and I know Stuart will go on about him all day and still does. He's someone who was same thing as, and I apologise to the producer, but Aaron Ramsdale, in the sense that he was clearly levels above us while he was playing for us.
Aaron Ramsdale.
He was levels above us when he was playing for us, and that's the thing. We've had Lyle, we've had Rambo. Every year we've had that one player who is levels and levels above where we are as a club. This year so far it's been Marcus Force. It's a question of can we keep him for the season, because if we do, he will be held up there like those other two by the time he leaves us in the summer, if he stays that long.
I spoke to George Long a couple of weeks ago.
Another player of just levels and levels above us.
Absolute levels above. And he spoke so highly of his time at AFC Wimbledon because it was a loan move that he needed at the time. He'd come in at Sheffield United and was going to kind of be the next big thing. And then, of course, the next big thing behind him was a certain goalkeeper that was on loan last season, is now doing very, very well at Bournemouth. But George spoke so highly of his time at Wimbledon, absolutely loved it, and more importantly, the connection that he built with Lyle Taylor. It got to a point where he was really practicing his distribution, George Long, whilst he was at AFC Wimbledon, and actually said it improved so incredibly much when he was at AFC Wimbledon, because he had a relationship with Lyle Taylor that as soon as he got the ball, picked it up from a cross, or it was coming back to him, or he'd made a save, he knew that Lyle was on his bike, or Kwesi was on his bike, and he would just launch those left foot sidewinders ping into their space. Why are you laughing at me?
No reason at all. Lyle was an incredible player for us, and he did have a very special relationship with George Long. And I think it's something like that. And you look at the loanees we've had, especially in goal. You know, Keller Roos, who's now first choice with Derby, George Long, first choice at Hull, Aaron Ramsdale, now Premier League goalie, first choice. And, well, let's be honest, he'll probably be in the England squad before the Euros this summer. And it's just something which a huge amount of praise has to go to Ashley Bayes. That, you know, and this year, Nathan Trott, England Youth International, the fact that, you know, Premier League clubs are treating us to their highest prospect goalkeeper, and we're getting them and developing them and turning them to Championship or Premier League quality goalies within a year of them leaving us. I think that tells you so much about how well Ashley Bayes is doing with our goalkeepers.
Indeed. No, it says a lot, mate. It does. I'm still trying to figure out why you were laughing at me. You were definitely laughing at something then, mate. What did I say that made you laugh?
There was absolutely nothing ironic about that statement you made.
I don't know what I said.
Moving very swiftly on.
Okay, fine. Probably for the best. With regards to the goalkeepers as well, there is a situation now, and we spoke about this actually a few weeks ago, and Wally was quite hot on this with Ashley Bayes, that AFC Wimbledon very particular in their recruitment, especially when signing goalkeepers. They would really evaluate who would benefit the team, all the way from character, from distribution to shot stopping, everything. It had to be the right fit for AFC Wimbledon, which is why goalkeepers in recent times, when you look at George Long, when you look at the current Bournemouth goalkeeper, when you look at Nathan Trott, they have been the right fits.
Yeah, and I think that's telling. I mean, Nathan Trott's someone it's taken him a while to grow into it. He is improving every week, but it is his first loan, so you would expect him to take a while to get going. I mean, we must forget Ramsdale didn't do well in his first loan at Chesterfield. You know, they very nearly sent him back. You know, and it's something that Trott's improving very quickly, and it's encouraging signs. And for a club, when you don't have a number one goalie, and you know every year is going to be another loanee coming in for just 1 year in such a crucial position, it's so encouraging. We've got such a good track record of, you know, high quality goalies that have come in. And I mean, even James Shea, a goalie who we released because Neil Ardley didn't think he was good enough for us, is now first choice for a Championship side.
Well, he's very interesting as well, because obviously they bought in Simon Sluga for a club record fee. Luton, actually,
$2.5 million, wasn't it?
I think it broke it from Lars Elstrup. I think it was when he joined, like late 80s, early 90s. One of the early foreign players to come in, plastic pitch at Kenilworth Road and all the rest of it. But yeah, James Shea lost his place for no reason whatsoever, other than the fact that maybe they just felt they needed a new keeper to step up into the Championship. But he's come back in, of course, kept a clean sheet against Bristol City, and of course they lost this weekend. But yes, a very good goalkeeper.
Yeah, and again, I think that just shows, you know, how well our recruitment is done. I mean, our recruitment in certain areas is hit and miss. And saying that is kind in some of the areas of our recruitment. Especially you look maybe in our forwards, if you take out Marcus Force. Our recruitment there hasn't been great over the last 3 or 4 years. But goal is something we seem to hit the mark on every 9 out of 10 times in terms of loan deals, of getting the right people in. Ever since Neil Ardley gave Ashley Bayes full control over goalkeeping recruitment, it's been a hit pretty much every time. And, you know, that is so encouraging for a club like us to know that whatever happens outfield, we've got a dependable goalie, because for us Ramsdale kept us up last year. Nathan Trott could do the same for us this year.
Indeed. Well, we will move on now quickly before we go, George, on that clash with Lincoln. You said the wheels have come off, of course, since Danny Cowley departed for Huddersfield, doing incredibly well there. I think they picked up 11 points from 15 games in the Championship. But to be fair, despite their good start to the season, of course, they won their first 4 in all competitions. They were slightly falling off anyway. That defeat to Wick, I remember 3-1. There was a lot of speculation then that he might have been departing. So they lost that game. Of course, they beat Fleetwood in the game before, but yeah, since then it has been nothing but of a shambles, I suppose you could say, under Michael Appleton. He was pretty disappointed that the game was called off at the weekend. The one game between you two, of course, in the past. So, I mean, yeah, they're not on form.
No, and I mean, that's the thing. For them, Bolton, it was the perfect game for them being where they are. Bolton's a very winnable game, and apart from Southend, it's probably the most winnable game in the league at the moment. Apart from, you know, Bristol Rovers obviously lost to Bolton, but it's a very winnable game for Lincoln, and they really needed that opportunity to turn their season around, because now they're going into the game against us. We're on a reasonably good run of form, and for them, they needed to turn this around, because the longer it goes on for, the harder it is to turn it around. And when January is coming up so quickly, like you said. And for Lincoln, a club who, who knows how much money they're going to be able to spend in that, Lincoln are sliding towards the bottom three very quickly. And that'll be a worry in case a couple of sides do find a run of form between now and the end of the season.
Okay, and a quick score prediction from your fine self?
I think it'll be tight. I think we'll win 2-1.
2-1 to AFC Wimbledon hosting Lincoln City next week. Of course, just to finish, our tweets about the food has created quite a stir, which is very interesting. Of course, Hannah, thank you. She agreed with me. No time for fancy food, at the footy. Kaz said just better bar service. She says she does agree though, of course, with that tweet about the Don's Trust. Don's Trust, of course, important. No vote, no voice. We'll be able to get these tweets out in a minute. Joe Blair, Bovril and a pie, please. Absolutely. And Paula Prake, mushy peas and faggots at Burton Albion on Tuesday. Crikey, they look absolutely... not quite sure what to say on those ones. This has been the AFC Wimbledon fan show on Love Spot. We will see you next week after that game with Lincoln.
Underground, overground, wombling free. The wombles are
This is Love Sport.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. This means that travelling to the EU will change. You'll need to check online if your passport is valid for travel to Europe. If you're planning on driving, you'll need to check if you have the right documents to drive. And make sure your travel insurance covers all your healthcare needs. To keep your trip on track, check what you need to do at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
Don't get caught out in the great energy price hike as large firms look to charge you more. If you want to save money on your energy bills, it's not too late to see what's on the market. With rising gas and electricity bills, don't get caught out wasting your money on expensive tariffs. A Spokesman Said will show you the very best value deals available. Check out aspokesmansaid.com and you could be using your savings to put towards a well-earned holiday.
With aspokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.